Michael was in the middle of Heal the World when a voice rose from the front rows. Not a scream, not a chant, a small, trembling sentence that didn't belong in a stadium. Michael froze, and in a single motion so calm it didn't even look real, he stopped the entire show. What happened next didn't feel like a concert anymore. It felt like 60,000 people were holding their breath for one child. It was a late summer night in the 1990s. Inside a massive outdoor stadium, the kind with floodlights that turned the sky pale above it, it was sold out, every seat filled, every aisle packed. The energy had been building since afternoon, and by the time the first bass hit, the place was already shaking. Backstage was a machine, road cases stacked like walls, cables taped down like veins, crew moving in rehearsed patterns. Someone counting down minutes like seconds were currency. Michael had already lit the crowd on fire earlier in the set. Fast numbers, sharp choreography, the hits that made people jump without realizing they were jumping. Now the show had shifted into the emotional stretch. Softer lights, slower tempo. The part of the night where the stadium stopped acting like a crowd and started acting like one voice. From the pit, security could see everything. The barricade, the center sections, the first few rows where fans leaned forward so hard it looked like the music was pulling them. And that's where the boy was. He wasn't there because he had money or connections. He was there because his parents had run out of options. And one last wish was the only thing left that still sounded like hope. His name was Noah, 10 years old. Too small for the oversized hoodie hanging off his shoulders, too pale under the stadium lights. He held a folded paper against his chest with both hands as if letting go would make him fall. Noah's mother, Sarah, stood behind him, one hand on his shoulder, the other clutching a medical discharge sheet folded into a rectangle. Noah's father, David, stayed to the side, eyes scanning security and exits like a man who'd spent too many nights in hospital hallways. 2 days earlier, the doctor had said the sentenced parents never recover from less than 48 hours. Noah had heard it. That night in the hospital, after the hallway lights dimmed and the nurses moved quieter, Noah asked for one thing. Not a miracle, not a cure, just a moment that felt normal. "I want to see Michael," he whispered. Before I can't." Sarah tried to answer like a parent, gently, realistically, with careful words, but David had already stood up, already taken a breath like a man preparing to lift something heavy. He made calls. He begged. He found a charity contact. A friend of a friend. A touring liaison who didn't hang up. A security coordinator who asked only one question. How soon? When David answered, there was a pause on the line. Then the voice said, "Bring him." Noah arrived at the stadium hours before showtime. The backstage entrance didn't look like a red carpet. It looked like a loading dock, concrete, fluorescent lights, people carrying equipment with their heads down. Security checked the paperwork twice, then a third time. Not because they didn't believe it, because everyone who touched those papers needed to feel certain they were doing the right thing. Noah was guided to the front pit area, not in the crowd, not backstage, not on the stage. Just close enough that if he raised his voice it might reach the edge. He didn't talk much. His breathing wasn't steady. He looked like he was saving his energy for the exact moment that mattered. Sarah kept whispering, "You okay? Are you cold? Do you need water?" Noah shook his head every time, because it wasn't the cold he felt. It was time. The show started. The stadium screamed like thunder with a heartbeat. Noah flinched at the first surge of sound, but then he steadied himself, eyes locked on the stage. When Michael walked out, Noah didn't cry the way other kids might have cried. He smiled small, private, like he'd just proven something to himself. The first half of the concert flew by. The kind of flying that only happens when you're inside a moment you've imagined for so long it stops feeling like imagination. Then the set moved into a slower song, one of the songs people hold on to when they want to believe the world still has softness in it. The lights warmed, the band softened. The crowd began to sway, and down at the barricade Noah unfolded his paper. The paper wasn't a fancy sign. It wasn't printed. It was hand-drawn, wrinkled, damp at the corners like it had been held too tightly. On it, in uneven letters, was a sentence. "Michael, please, I only have 2 days." Sarah didn't want him to hold it up. She was afraid of what it meant to say those words out loud in public, afraid it would make the truth heavier. But Noah lifted it anyway. At first the sign disappeared in the chaos of hands and lights. Then a camera caught it. Not on purpose, just a sweep across the pit. For 1 second the sentence flashed on the big screens overhead. People near Noah went still, not quiet still, because the words weren't "I love you" or "marry me" or "sing my favorite song." They were a countdown, and on stage Michael saw it. He didn't make a face. He didn't point. He just stopped moving. For a beat, the band continued, because the music doesn't know what the eyes have seen yet. Then Michael lifted his hand. One clear gesture. The band faded out, the track softened, and the song stopped. The stadium made a confused sound, a wave of cheering that didn't know where to go. Michael walked to the edge of the stage and looked down toward the pit, scanning slowly, carefully, like he was searching for one specific star in a sky of faces. He found Noah. Noah's arms shook from holding the paper up. His knees looked weak. Michael spoke into the mic, not loud, not showy, just enough to carry. He said, "You," with the sign. The pit erupted in a different kind of noise, people turning, pointing, gasping. Noah lowered the paper. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Sarah's hands went to her face. David's jaw clenched like he was trying not to collapse. Michael raised his palm again gently. "It's okay," he said. "I see you." And then he did something that cut through the entire stadium like a blade of light. He said, "Bring him here." The stadium screamed because that sentence is the dream. But security didn't move like it was a dream. They moved like it was serious. 2 guards leaned in, speaking softly to Sarah. A medic was suddenly there, checking Noah's balance, making sure he wouldn't faint. A small gate at the barricade opened. Noah was guided, not dragged, not rushed, guided up the side steps that led to the stage wing. The crowd watched like they were watching someone walk into a story. Noah reached the edge of the stage and stopped. He looked tiny in that light. Michael walked toward him slowly, no dramatic run, no choreography. Just a man approaching a child like he didn't want to scare him. He stopped an arm's length away. "What's your name?" Michael asked. Noah swallowed. His voice came out thin. "Noah." Michael nodded like he'd just been handed something precious. "Noah," he repeated. "Hi." Noah tried to lift the paper again, but his hands were shaking too much. Michael took it gently, the way you take a fragile thing from someone who's trying too hard not to drop it. He read it, then he looked up at Noah. For a few seconds he didn't speak. And in that silence the stadium did something almost impossible. It got quiet. Not perfectly quiet, but quiet enough to hear a child breathe. Michael lowered the microphone slightly and spoke to Noah in a voice meant for the front rows more than the upper seats. "You came here tonight," he said, "because you're very brave." Noah shook his head once. "Barely." "No," he whispered. "I'm scared." Michael's expression changed. Soft. Not for the audience, but for the truth in that sentence. "That's what brave is," Michael said. "You do it anyway." Noah's eyes filled. His mother was sobbing behind the barricade now. David held her up, one arm around her shoulders, his own eyes wet but locked on his son like he was afraid the moment might vanish if he blinked. Michael turned slightly to the crowd. "Listen," he said. "I want everybody to be very gentle right now." 60,000 people who had been screaming minutes earlier, lowered their voices like a blanket being placed over a flame. Michael faced Noah again. "What do you want to hear?" he asked. Noah's lips trembled. Can you sing something? Just to me?" That sentence hit the stadium like a wave, because it wasn't a demand. It was a child asking the universe for one small mercy. Michael nodded once. "Okay," he said. He took Noah's hand, not pulling him, not posing him, just holding his hand like you hold someone you don't want to lose in a crowd. He guided Noah to a spot beside him, away from the edge, away from the drop, where the lights wouldn't blind him. Then Michael turned toward the band and gave a small signal. No drums, no full arrangement, just a soft piano. One note, then another. The stadium waited. Michael lifted the microphone, but he didn't launch into a big performance. He didn't try to impress. He didn't do runs or riffs. He sang like he was in a small room, like it was a lullaby. And he kept his eyes on Noah, not on the cameras, not on the crowd. On the kid beside him, who looked like he was trying to store every sound inside his ribs. Halfway through, Noah began to cry quietly, not dramatically. Tears just fell down his cheeks like his body had finally stopped fighting. Michael didn't stop singing. He kept his voice steady, gentle, and something happened in the crowd. People started crying too, not because they were fans, because they were human. The song ended softly. No big finish. Just the last note fading into a stadium that didn't know how to move again. Michael crouched slightly so he was closer to Noah's height. "How you doing?" he asked. Noah nodded, wiping his face with his sleeve. I can hear you, he whispered. I can really hear you. Michael smiled, small, tired, real. Good, he said. That's why we did it. Then Michael did the part nobody expected. He pointed to the massive crowd in front of them. Do you see all of them? He asked Noah. Noah looked out, at the lights, the faces, the way the entire place seemed to be holding itself still. Noah nodded. Michael leaned closer. They're all here with you, he said. Okay? Not against you. With you. Noah's breathing changed. A little slower, a little calmer. Then Michael turned back to the microphone and spoke, carefully, like every word mattered. I want to do something, he said. Not for the cameras, not for the show. For him. He looked down at Noah again. Noah, he said, I'm going to ask them to give you something you can take with you. The stadium went still again. Michael raised his hand. Everybody, he said, I want you to be quiet for him. Just 1 minute. A full minute in a stadium is not a simple thing. It's a command that can only work if people choose it. But they chose it. The cheering stopped. The chanting stopped. Even the restless noise of a crowd, the shuffling, the constant murmurs faded. For 1 minute the stadium held a pocket of silence around a 10-year-old boy standing on a stage. Noah closed his eyes. Sarah dropped to her knees behind the barricade, crying into her hands. David stared at his son like he was watching the impossible happen in slow motion. At the end of the minute, Michael spoke softly. Thank you, he said. Then he asked Noah, can I give you something? Noah nodded. Michael removed a small glove from his pocket, not the famous glove. Not a costume piece, just a plain white glove, clean and simple, like something meant to be held, not displayed. He slid it gently into Noah's hands. This, he said, is for when you feel scared. You hold it and remember tonight. Noah clutched it like it was warm. Then Michael did something even more unexpected. He took out a pen. He didn't sign a giant autograph across Noah's paper for everyone to see. He wrote a short message on the inside of the glove where only Noah would see it. He held it close to Noah and said, this part is just for you. Noah's eyes widened. What did you write? Noah asked. Michael smiled. You'll read it later, he said. When you need it. Noah nodded like he understood. Kids do that sometimes. They understand the emotional shape of a thing before they understand the words. Then Michael turned to the crowd. Give him love, he said. And the applause that followed wasn't loud at first. It was careful, like people were clapping with their hearts in their hands. Then it grew rolling, rising until it filled the stadium in a way that didn't feel like noise. It felt like support. Michael guided Noah back toward the stage steps. Before Noah went down, Michael leaned close and said something that microphones didn't catch, but the crew members standing in the wing later told it the same way every time. Michael said, you are not alone in this. Security guided Noah back to his parents. Sarah collapsed around him, hugging him like she could keep him here by force. David couldn't speak. He just held Noah's head gently and whispered, I'm here, buddy. I'm here. The show didn't restart immediately. Michael stood on stage for a moment, watching them, watching a family hold each other like the world was ending and beginning at the same time. Then he turned back to the microphone. I love you, he said to the stadium. Thank you for being kind. The band returned. The show continued. The choreography came back. The machine kept moving because concerts have endings and contracts and timings. But the night had already been rewritten. After the final song, backstage was chaos again, packing, radios, schedules, vehicles lining up. Noah was guided to a quieter area to rest. A medic checked his pulse. Someone brought water. Someone brought a blanket. Noah's mother kept stroking the glove in his hands like she was afraid it might disappear. And then, as they prepared to leave, a door opened behind them. Michael walked out. Not in full stage gear now. Sweat on his face. A towel around his neck. His expression exhausted in that very specific way performers look when they've given everything. His team tried to move him along. Michael lifted a hand. 1 second, he said. He walked toward Noah's parents. Sarah couldn't stop crying. She kept saying, thank you, thank you. David managed. We didn't think this would happen. We didn't think anyone would. Michael shook his head gently. I'm glad you brought him, he said. Then he looked at Noah. Noah lifted the glove slightly, like showing proof he still had it. Michael smiled. Read it later, he reminded him. Noah whispered, I will. Michael leaned closer, just a little. And Noah, he said, when it gets dark in your head, you remember that 60,000 people were quiet for you? Noah nodded. Michael straightened up, gave a small nod to the parents, and walked away. Not for cameras, not for applause, just away. 2 days later, Noah's hospital room was quiet. The machines were there again, the white walls, the careful voices, but Noah's glove was on the bed beside him. Sarah said Noah kept touching it, like checking that the night was still real. A nurse asked him how the concert was. Noah smiled, small, tired, peaceful, and he said, "He heard me." That is what the story became. Not a show, not a headline, a moment where a child spoke and a stadium listened, where the biggest star in the world stopped everything, because one voice mattered more than 60,000. And if people walked out of that stadium loving Michael Jackson a little more, it wasn't because he sang perfectly. It was because for one night he proved something simple. He didn't just perform for crowds. He saw people.